In SFW, what is the worst smell that you've ever smelled in your life?
The inside of a hoarder's home after 15-ish years.
Back in 2007, my church youth group took a mission trip to New Orleans to help clean up after Katrina. Our main job was gutting out houses that were beyond repairs, furniture, carpets, etc. One of the houses we did was a full 2-story house, and literally every single room was absolutely jam-packed full of beep to the point you could hardly open the door. I don't think anybody knows how long this house had been hoarded, and then took extensive water damage, and sat for almost a year in southern Louisiana. We found dead cats, rats, mice, along with the smell of their beep and beep. We filled 3 full-size dumpsters in the span of maybe 6 hours. We hardly made a dent in that house. Even with ventilators and masks, it didn't help at all with the putrid smell of that house that still haunts me to this day. So yes, I would agree 100% with you.
A homeless guy on the train in Washington, D.C. He was sitting near the middle of the car and everyone else was squeezed to the sides of the car as far as they could get from him, because he smelled so bad. Dude was barefoot and legit looked like he had mold or something growing on his feet. He was just sitting there laughing hysterically too. Was super depressing.
This is mine. Was waiting for the tube in Shepherd's Bush after a gig and every carriage was packed, but then one was empty. Me and my idiot friends piled in. There was a large homeless chap halfway down, asleep in the carriage. His smell was unreal. Vomit, general unwashed horror. We dived out at the next station, but it felt like the smell was in my clothes and hair. Just beep sad face.
I work in a nursing home. When you have to change the trash filled with multiple diapers from different people, it smells like a mix of vomit and banana bread, but not the good kind of banana bread.
Why is this so accurate? Like beep, did you put a finger on the smell?
A restaurant grease trap. Nothing I've ever smelled compared to it.
So I grew up on a farm and have certainly smelled some horrific things, but the grease trap at the Italian restaurant I worked at in high school is by far the worst. It is the only smell I've encountered in my life that almost immediately caused me to almost throw up.
Wow, I had no idea. What makes them smell so bad, and what is the smell like?
After a weekend of cooked breakfasts and other rich food, I did a beep in a hotel in Cornwall that my wife and I still talk about 7 years later.
For some reason, the fact that the beep was in Cornwall makes this funnier.
The legendary Cornish beep, LOL.
Anal gland fluid/secretions from dogs.
This smell is currently ruining my life. It is distinct and putrid.
Vet here. Buy Duxo micellar solution and use it to clean anything that smells like anal glands. It is the only thing that works to get the smell out.
A bad egg. It came out black and gray, and I can't describe the smell. It was the worst smell I've ever smelled in my life.
Cracked one into a pan one morning. Quickly had to dump an entire pan of eggs, and gosh did it stink. I'm yet a bit leery of scrambled eggs, and will not crack directly into pan. Horrible.
Dog farted in the car. Dad pulled off the freeway, and we all bailed out, gagging and coughing. The dog was sitting in the back seat, looking beep proud of himself.
I have a coworker whose dog used to sleep by his bed. He got diagnosed with sleep apnea and got a CPAP machine. First night with it, dog farted close to it, and it injected dog beep directly into his lungs. Dog got to learn a new sleeping place.
As a CPAP user, I am both laughing hysterically and horrified. Thank you.
Rotten milk, but why it's the worst because it was almost every day for a few years. As a child, I left a whole gallon of milk in the trunk of the family car. We lived in New Mexico. It exploded in the trunk. The car never smelled the same.
During my junior year of high school, one of the big senior class clowns decided what his prank was gonna be from day one. He would take a whole gallon of milk, empty it out about halfway, fill it back up with and a dead rodent. He took this concoction and set it in his locker during the first week of school, wrapped up in multiple trash bags and other such items. Letting it marinate every day until the final day of school for the seniors, which ended about a week before everyone else's final day. He brought in a gas mask and took out his bottle of milk, and then began to pour little bits of it down every hall in school. The smell was so foul, so vile, it entered into every classroom, every crack and crevice. It stunk so bad you could smell it outside the school. The moment he began pouring, every single person in the building was gagging or throwing up, sticking their heads out the window or spraying whatever perfume or cologne they had to cover it. They had to shut the school down for multiple days to even make it remotely bearable. Even then, you had to walk around with something over your nose or risk vomiting. I've never seen so many people vomit, let alone a staff member in one place. He ended up being expelled and didn't get his diploma despite graduation being a couple days away. They pressed criminals charges against him, banned him from ever stepping foot on school property ever again. Every future class was informed that if they did a senior prank, no matter how small or harmless, they would expel you on the final day and press charges. The smell never left the school. That next year, you could smell it on the first day. It was always there. It's gotten better over time, but if the school is empty, and they haven't mopped the floors yet that day, you can still smell it, lingering on the air. That happened over 5 years ago.
Incredible story. This is why I'm here.
Meat freezer went out and stayed out for 3 weeks while I was on vacation. The floor around it was white and fuzzy with black, tacky go underneath in a huge radius. The inside. The inside. I was prescribed pills to forget the inside.
I had a freezer full of fish stop working, and we didn't notice until the smell crept up to the living area of the house. So disgusting. The husband started to open it to look inside and immediately closed it and barfed. So we borrowed a truck and took the whole freezer to the dump. Dumps in those days were like a huge open field that everything just got put down, and then a guy in a tractor would move the stuff around. So the freezer gets set down and we go back to the car, and the guy with the tractor comes rushing at it with a look of adventure because it's fun to crush things. Drives over the freezer, a ton of liquid fish spills out, and the tractor guy just stops dead in his tracks, and is so overcome with nausea, he can't work the tractor to get himself out of the mess. Poor guy.
I have a whole movie in my head of his excited little zipping, and then regret, and then panic.
Post-mortem dissection.
Well, the egg fried rice I just cooked up is going to be a waste.
C. diff, while awful by itself and extremely distinctive, is the worst, and it is so often mixed with other potentially awful smells.
Also browsed you see if someone mentioned C. diff. I used to be a CNA, had a guy with KIF, and will never forget that putrid, sickly sweet smell. Fast forward to 10 years later, I had cancer, and a year and a half of chemo with one of 2 cycles being 5-day inpatient stays. I not only caught KIF once, but 5 additional times after that. Knew it instantly by the smell. Was shitting at least 15 times an hour. Every time I had chemo and walked the halls, I would contract it a day or 2 later. I finally had enough and refused to leave my room until I was discharged. I'd pace in my room if need be. They grabbed a tube of Desitin from labor and delivery, because the cream they had in oncology wasn't working on my extremely raw and destroyed beet, causing immense pain. My gut was cramping, I had pus in my diarrhea, it was horrible. I was already weak from chemo, had Mesna for bladder protection from chemo drugs which smelled pretty close to cat. So basically I reeked of cat/roadkill, had to constantly be monitored as I had no immune system, and got dehydrated from the constant diarrhea. My hospital was an hour and a half away, I had to wear adult diapers home because of the frequency of diarrhea. If I'm having a bad day, I always tell myself you could have C. diff on top of this, and it generally makes me a little more positive over my issues.
My dad also got it after chemo. Took almost 6 months of treatment to get rid of it. They were seriously considering doing a fecal transplant for my mom if the meds continued to not work. Which then became a running gag in the family that having been married 40 years they shared everything else, so why not fecal bacteria?
Partially decayed sea anemone. It's weirdly awful, like Yes, it smells bad, but it also hits you right in the puke button. Not just, this smells so bad I feel like throwing up, but straight up, this smells like I should throw up. Trying to remove them with a net is a bad idea. They turn to mush and go everywhere in the aquarium and smell awful. Better way is to siphon them out. But also, the easiest way to start a siphon is with your mouth. Wanna know what partially decayed sea anemone tastes like?